Hi there. Let's continue our study in Matthew. We're in chapter 22. We got our coffee. So let's just get right to it. A parable of the great feast. Jesus also told them other parables. He said, "The kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by the story of a king who prepared a great wedding feast for his son. When the banquet was ready, he sent his servants to notify those who were invited, but they all refused to come. So he sent other servants to tell them, 'The feast has been prepared, the bulls and fattened cattle have been killed, and everything is ready. Come to the banquet.' But the guests he invited ignored them and went their own way, one to his farm, another to his business. Others seized his messengers and insulted them and killed them." Wow. The king was furious, and he sent out his army to destroy the murderers and burn their town. And he said to his servants, "The wedding feast is ready, and the guests I invited aren't worthy of the honor. Now go out to the street corners and invite everyone you see." So the servants brought in everyone they could find, good and bad alike, and the banquet hall was filled with guests. But when the king came in to meet the guests, he noticed a man who wasn't wearing the proper clothes for a wedding. "Friend," he asked, "how is it that you are here without wedding clothes?" But the man had no reply. Then the king said to his aides, "Bind his hands and feet and throw him into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are called, but few are chosen." Wow, that's a confusing one, huh? Taxes for Caesar. Then the Pharisees met together to plot how to trap Jesus into saying something for which he could be arrested. They sent some of their disciples along with the supporters of Herod to meet with him. Now we know Herod didn't like him. "Teacher," they said, "we know how honest you are. You teach the way of God truthfully. You are impartial and don't play favorites. Now tell us what you think about this. Is it right to pay taxes to Caesar or not?" But Jesus knew their evil motives. "You hypocrites." I always love those. "You hypocrites," he said. "Why are you trying to trap me? Here, show me the coin used for the tax." When they handed him a Roman coin, he asked, "Whose picture and title are stamped on it?" "Caesar's," they replied. "Well then," he said, "give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and give to God what belongs to God." His reply amazed them, and they went away. You know, all the monies around the world are stamped with the leaders in charge. We are the only country that stamps our money with people that aren't alive anymore. You can't be on the money in America if you're alive. So, just an interesting side note. Discussion about resurrection. The same day, Jesus was approached by some Sadducees. Now, we remember the Sadducees don't believe in resurrection. They believe that this life is all there is. Religious leaders who say there is no resurrection from the dead. They posed the question, "Teacher, Moses said if a man dies without children, his brother should marry the widow and have a child who will carry on the brother's name. Well, suppose there were 7 brothers. The oldest one married and died without children, so his brother married the widow. But the second brother also died, and a third brother married her. This continued with all 7 of them. Last of all, the woman also died. So tell us, whose wife will she be in the resurrection?" Now remember, they don't believe in the resurrection, so for all 7 were married to her. Jesus replied, "Your mistake is that you don't know the scriptures." You know, that's a lot of the problems with everybody today. Their mistake is they don't know the scriptures. And you don't know the power of God. For when the dead rise, they will neither marry nor be given in marriage. In this respect, they will all be like the angels in heaven. And they won't be angels. People think that people become, they don't. Angels are lower than us. You have to remember that. You know, angels are not created in God's image. We are. It will be like the angels. Angels in heaven don't marry. They're all, there to glorify God. But now, as to whether there will be a resurrection of the dead, haven't you ever read about this in the scriptures? Long after Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob had died, God said, "I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." So he is the God of the living, not the dead. See, they don't believe in the resurrection. They think Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are dead and gone, and there's no more. But long after they were dead, God still told them, "I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob," which means they're still up in heaven. They haven't completely died. Their souls are alive. When the crowds heard him, they were astounded at his teaching. The most important commandment. But when the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees with his reply, they met together to question him again. One of them, an expert in religious law, tried to trap him with this question: "Teacher, which is the most important commandment in the law of Moses?" Jesus replied, "You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. A second is equally important: love your neighbor as yourself. The entire law and all the demands of the prophets are based on these two commandments." There you go. There only has to be two. Whose son is the Messiah? Then, surrounded by the Pharisees, Jesus asked them a question. "What do you think about the Messiah? Whose son is he?" They replied, "He's the son of David." Jesus responded, "Then why does David, speaking under the inspiration of the Spirit, call the Messiah my Lord? For David said, 'The Lord said to my Lord, sit in the place of honor at my right hand until I humble your enemies beneath your feet.'" See, that's a trick question, because a king never calls his son Lord. Okay, that can never happen. And they knew that. So, he calls me Lord. How can I be his son? Cool. Since David called the Messiah my Lord, how can the Messiah be his son? I just said that. No one can answer him. And after that, no one dared ask him any more questions. Yeah, once you realize that, you can't trap him, you stop trying. Let's go on to Matthew 23. Jesus criticizes the religious leaders. He did this a lot. Then Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, "The teachers of religious law and the Pharisees are the official interpreters of the law of Moses. So practice and obey whatever they tell you, but don't follow their example, for they don't practice what they teach. They don't practice what they preach." They crush people with unbearable religious demands and never lift a finger to ease the burden. Everything they do is for show. On their arms they wear extra wide prayer boxes with scripture verses inside, and they wear robes with extra long tassels. Boy, this goes on a lot today, huh? See, some of those other religions, or even, okay, I'll say it, the Catholics, look at the robes and stuff they wear, And they love to sit at the head of the table at banquets and at the seats of honor in the synagogues. They love to receive respectful greetings as they walk in the marketplaces and to be called rabbi. Yeah. They sound like some people today, religious leaders. They're still doing that, all about them. Don't let anyone call you rabbi, for you have only one teacher, and all of you are equal as brothers and sisters. That's a good one right there. I'll make that pink. And don't address anyone here on earth as Father, for only God in heaven is your Father. Now, he's not talking about your dad, okay? Now, what do they call, in Catholicism, they call the pastors Father. And it says, don't address anyone on earth as Father, for only God in heaven is your Father. And don't let anyone call you teacher, for you have only one teacher, the Messiah. The greatest among you must be a servant. But those who exalt themselves will be humble, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites! For you shut the door of the kingdom of heaven in people's faces. You won't go in yourselves, and you don't let others enter either. Now, is he talking about the Holy of Holies? Maybe. They never go in there. That's where God is. In their beliefs of the time, God was in the Holy of Holies. It was separated by a huge curtain, that was a foot thick. And they only allowed one elected person in there. You won't go in yourselves, and you don't let others enter either. That'll change, huh? What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law and Pharisees, hypocrites, again. For you cross land and sea to make one convert, and then you turn that person into twice the child of hell. Wow. What is that? 15. Greek of Gehenna. Could be said about across the land and sea to make one cover and turn that person into twice the child of hell you yourselves are. Wow. Missionaries. Blind guides, what sorrow awaits you? For you say that it means nothing to swear by God's temple, but that it is binding to swear by the gold in the temple. Blind fools. Wow. Or you say that it means nothing to swear by God's temple, but it is binding to swear by the gold in the temple. So what are they worshiping? Blind fools. Which is more important, the gold or the temple that makes the gold sacred? And you say to swear by the altar is not binding, but to swear by the gifts on the altar is binding. How blind. For which is more important, the gift on the altar or the altar that makes the gift sacred? When you swear by the altar, you are swearing by it and by everything on it. And when you swear by the temple, you are swearing by it and by God, who lives in it. And when you swear by heaven, you are swearing by the throne of God and by God who sits on the throne. As he also said earlier, just don't swear, okay? Don't swear on anything. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. There was a time when a man's word was all he needed. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites again. For you are careful to tithe even the tiniest income of your herb gardens, but you ignore the important aspects of the law, justice, mercy, and faith. You should tithe, yes, but do not neglect the more important things, blind guides. You strain your water so you won't accidentally swallow a gnat, but you swallow a camel. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites. For you are so careful to clean the outside of the cup and the dish, but inside you are filthy, full of greed and self-indulgence. The cup and the dish, he's talking about them. They wash the outside, they take baths, they wear the finest robes, always looking, as the English say, dressed to the nines on the outside. But inside you're filthy, full of greed and self-indulgence. You blind Pharisee. First wash the inside of the cup and the dish, and then the outside will become clean too. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites. Man. For you are like whitewashed tombs, beautiful on the outside, but filled on the inside with dead people's bones and all sorts of impurity. Outwardly you look like righteous people, but inwardly your hearts are filled with hypocrisy and lawlessness. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law and Pharisees, hypocrites again. Wow. For you build tombs for the prophets your ancestors killed, and you decorate the monuments of the godly people your ancestors destroyed. Then you say, if we had lived in the days of our ancestors, we never would have joined them in killing the prophets. Right. But in saying that, you testify against yourselves that you are indeed the descendants of those who murdered the prophets. Go ahead and finish what your ancestors started, snakes, son of vipers. Wow. How will you escape the judgment of hell? Therefore I am sending you prophets and wise men and teachers of religious law. But you will kill some by crucifixion, and you will flog others with whips in your synagogues, chasing them from city to city. As a result, you will be held responsible for the murder of all godly people of all time, from the murder of rebellious Abel to the murder of Zachariah, son of Berechiah, whom you killed in the temple between the sanctuary and the altar. I tell you the truth, this judgment will fall on this very generation. Wow. He had a lot to say to the Pharisees. And they're basically fake. I mean, they were all fake. They cared about the gold, but not the altar. They cared about the money, but not the church. They cared about themselves, but not the people. Hypocrites, hypocrites, hypocrites. Snakes, son of vipers. Well, he outed him right in front of everybody, so no wonder they wanted to kill him, huh? Jesus grieves over Jerusalem. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones God's messengers. How often I have wanted to gather your children together as a hen protects her chicks beneath her wings, but you wouldn't let me. And now look, your house is abandoned and desolate. What's that, 38? Some manuscripts do not include and desolate. Okay. For I tell you this, you will never see me again until you say blessings on the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Wow. So that was pretty. Looks like I've studied 24 already, huh? So, that was 22 and 23, I believe. Yep. Parable of the Great Feast. Hypocrites. Your mistake is that you don't know the scriptures. Yeah, when you go asking pastors and people questions, know the scriptures first. Know the scriptures. The most important commandments. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. The first and greatest commandment. The second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. The entire law and all the demands of the prophets are based on these two commandments. Yeah. They replied, he's the son of David. Because that's proven in genealogy. I mean, they easily traced his lineage back to David. So they said, you're just the son of David. And I said, then why does David, speaking under the inspiration of the Spirit, call the Messiah my Lord? Wow, amazing. And this is where all of 23 is where he's criticizing the religious leaders, the whole thing. And every bit of this chapter can be used today, which is very sad. Very sad. Everything they do is for show. On their arms, they wear extra wide prayer boxes with scripture verses inside, and they wear robes with extra long tassels. They love to sit at the head of the table at banquets and in the seats of honor in the synagogues. They love to receive respectful greetings as they walk in the marketplaces and to be called rabbi. Don't let anyone call you rabbi, for you have only one teacher, and all of you are equal as brothers and sisters. And don't address anyone on earth as Father, for only God in heaven is your Father. Remember that. Those who exalt themselves will be humbled. Those who humble themselves will be exalted. And here he starts. Hypocrites. Hypocrites. Yeah. For missionaries, you cross the land and sea to make one convert, and then you turn that person into twice the child of hell you yourselves are. Blind guides, what sorrow awaits you. For you say it means nothing to swear by God's temple, but that it is binding to swear by the gold in the temple. Who are they really worshiping? Outwardly you look like righteous people, but inwardly your hearts are filled with hypocrisy and lawlessness. And look at this. Hypocrites. Hypocrites. Blind. Hypocrites. Hypocrites. Amazing. Snakes, son of vipers. He had some names for them. He didn't like the things they were doing to the normal people of God. And we shouldn't either. So, that's 22 and 23. We'll get with 24 tomorrow. As you can see, I got a lot of stuff already marked on that one. But that's the study for today. Remember, keep praying, keep reading out loud. It's important to read out loud. You know, ask the Spirit for help. Wait on the Lord. See you next time.